Senator Rick Scott of Wisconsin, a member of the Senate Republican leadership, laid it all out in a plan. It's the ultra-MAGA agenda. Their plan is to raise taxes on 75 million American families.
Well, there you have it. Joining me now is the aforementioned Florida Senator Rick Scott. Just want to qualify that. Nothing wrong with Wisconsin. Mr. Scott happens to be from Florida. He's also the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. You know, Senator Scott, first of all, welcome back to the show. I want to get your response. I just want to read. This is from your 11-step plan for America's future. All Americans should pay some income tax to have skin in the game, even if a small amount. Currently, over half of Americans pay no income tax. Now, from that little, small, tiny paragraph, you have become Biden's favorite whipping guy, and they've priced out a whole thing here. 75 million middle-class people, $1,500 tax hikes, half of small business, 82% making less than. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. I'm not aware that you've done a price out or any legislative details. But why don't first respond to Biden. Are you representing congressional Republican policy?
Well, first off, I represent Rick Scott, and what my belief is, I'm a business guy that grew up in public housing, born to a single mom, and I know the importance of a job. So the whole point of this is we've got to figure out how to get this country back to work. We've got low labor participation. We've got a GDP that's going down. We've got inflation of 8.5% at 40-year high. We've got inflation growing way faster than wages. We've got mortgage rates up. I mean, this is not working. And what the president's doing is he lies about things. Go to rescueamerica.com. There's 11 steps, 128 policy points. But here's what we've got to do. We have got to act like we want to get inflation under control, balance the budget. We need to be energy independent. We need to eliminate this ridiculous regulatory state. We need to streamline the permitting. We've got to buy more American products. Then the Federal Reserve has got to reduce their balance sheet. If you do all those things together, guess what? Inflation is going to come down. I ran on a job to get our state back to work back in 2010 when I ran. Our state was in trouble. Florida was in trouble. More people left the state the year I moved in. We'd lost 800,000 jobs. And with my plan, we added 1.7 million jobs. Joe Biden has no plan. You listen to his press conference today was supposed to be about his ideas on inflation. No, his ideas on attacking people, whether the Federal Reserve or Putin or the pandemic. It was never ever his fault. So we can do this, but Biden doesn't have a plan. I think in business, you know what he'd be doing right now? He'd be resigning. People say, this guy's got no plan. He's not going to run my company. That's what he ought to do now. That's how we're going to get inflation down. We've got to get somebody that understands the economy. He doesn't.
Senator Scott, so I get it. Biden playing the blame game today. Do you believe all Americans should pay some income tax, even if it's a small amount, to keep skin in the game? And I just wondered, have you or your staff done, is there a more formal legislative proposal? Is there a price out? In other words, what did you mean with this point in your 11-point plan?
Larry, my point was we ought to get all able-bodied Americans back to work. The Democrats have created programs, which we need safety nets. You know, I grew up in public housing. We need safety nets. I understand the reason, the value of safety nets, but we're not supposed to make people dependent on government. That's what the Democrats want to do. And so what I want to do is, my whole point is, if you want to get people to have skin in the game, you get them a job. That's what I did. When I left as governor of Florida, we had taken the number of people on unemployment in 8 years down from about 1 million down to 61,000. We didn't kick people off. What we did is we got them a job. Then they're in the capitalist system in this country. They're participating, they're paying taxes, and they're paying either sales taxes or income taxes or property taxes. That's what we ought to do. That's how you're going to build this economy. But Biden's what he lied about? He lied about he's reducing the deficit. He's not reducing the deficit. This is the guy, when he took office in the U.S. Senate, the national debt was less than $1 trillion, and now it's 30, and his plan is to take it to 45 trillion. So what what Biden did today is either is completely confused or he completely lied.
If, I've never really thought through this, but if you had everyone pay something, now, when you say the income tax, does that include the payroll tax?
Yeah, they pay payroll taxes. They'll pay, they'll pay sales tax. I mean, if you want to build a country, you don't build it on people not working, you build it on people working. I guess when they have a job, they buy homes, they pay property taxes, they buy furniture, they pay sales taxes. They have a job, they pay payroll taxes, they pay into the Medicare program, the Social Security program, which we've got to figure out how to make sure that survives. And what he said today, he lied on that also. I've been clear, I want to make sure Medicare sticks around. He actually supported cutting Medicare and Social Security when he was in the U.S. Senate. So I mean, this guy, Biden just completely lied or he's completely confused. But either way, it's bad for the country.
Before we get, I want to get to the sunset provisions in a second, but I just want to say, have you or your staff calculated if everybody paid some income tax and or payroll tax, which I think is what you're getting at, would that generate higher taxes on lower income people or middle income people? Have those calculated? That's what he's accusing you of, and then he's sort of a blanket accusation for the whole Republican Party, calling it the Congressional Republican Plan, which I know that's not your intent. But I'm just saying, have you calculated? For years, conservatives have made this argument, but you have so many tax credits, refundable, non-refundable nowadays, and subsidies. So would lower income people wind up having a tax hike under your idea?
Larry, the way I look at it is, what I've said is, if they have a job, they're going to be part of this country, and they're all going to pay into it. I don't believe in raising taxes. As a matter of fact, I cut taxes and fees 100 times while I was governor. So I'm not going to raise anybody's taxes, but I do know if you get people a job, they're part of this whole capitalist system that also will reduce the number of people on our safety nets because they don't need them. They'll be able to buy their own health insurance. They'll be able to pay for their own housing. They won't need food stamps. Think of what that's going to do to our cost structure will go down, and our revenues will grow because people are, they're participating in the entire capitalistic system.
On the question of sunsetting, Biden is also accusing you of this Republican plan that would sunset Social Security and Medicare, meaning end those entitlement programs. Was that your intent?
No, what I said was, first off, on Medicare and Social Security, Congress, which never talks about the fact that Medicare is going bankrupt in 4 years and Social Security goes bankrupt in 12. They're never talking about it. So I said, Congress ought to do a report every year exactly what they're going to do to make sure people get their Medicare benefits and Social Security benefits. Now, with regard to other programs, we ought to look at those, see if we still need them. But let's think about how disingenuous Biden was. We don't fund the military for 10 years. We fund the military every year. Does that mean we do that we're not going to fund the military? We have a plan not to fund our military? Of course not. We know that we have to have a Medicare program that works. But the Biden just signed a bill that puts Medicare in a worse financial position. And again, he supported cutting Medicare. I would never do that.
And the other one, though, I think that I noticed this. No government assistance unless you're disabled or seeking work. In other words, you're in favor of workfare, which I think kind of plays into your idea that if you're working, then you'll be paying taxes and contributing to the coffers.
If you're able-bodied, you ought to go to work in this country. You ought to participate in our capitalist system, pay your fair share of the taxes, go out and buy your house, be able to buy the furniture for your house, be able to put your kids through school. I mean, this is the dream of this country. I'm a kid that grew up in public housing. My mom said, look, you've got to go out and build your career on your own. Nobody's going to do it for you. She didn't want to go on any government programs. She wanted to make sure all of us took responsibility and were upstanding citizens and participated in the capitalist system of this country. She believed in this country. And I don't think my parents ever probably made $10,000 a year in their life.
Well, God bless. So basically, you're saying to Biden, look, I'm a tax cutter, and I'm for limited government. You're not a tax raiser. That's your message to Biden?
No, I'm never going to raise taxes, but I'm going to do everything I can to get you a job so you're part of our system. Biden's going to try to make you dependent on government, which is not good for your family.
Last question, Senator, with respect. Have you thought about modifying or expanding or explaining this one little paragraph that Biden is picking on?
Yeah, what we're doing is we're taking a lot of ideas from people. This is my idea. I think we have to have a plan for when we get a majority, which I think we will. We're getting ideas. We'll be making some changes over the next month. We'll be talking about a variety of new issues, and we'll explain, any questions people have, we're going to explain them. But my idea is, it doesn't have to be my plan, but let's have a plan when we get the majority so we get something done and turn this country around.
I got one for you. How about making the Trump tax cuts permanent?
Absolutely.
Good.
We absolutely.
By the way, those Trump tax cuts slashed taxes for middle-income, blue-collar, hard-hat workers, the very people who have deserted the Democrats' progressive agenda. Senator Rick Scott, I'm going to emphasize this, Senator Rick Scott of Florida, not Wisconsin.
See you, Larry. Have
Florida.
a great day.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.